So as we all know, UFC 300 had their first few fight announced, and I thought it'd be fun, instead of your typical card building video, I went to take a look at the UFC rankings. I took a look at every single fighter in the UFC. I put together a bunch of little matchups, and I put together 30 fights that out of everything the UFC could possibly make, and these are all realistic, by the way. These are completely realistic matchups, and that's why I was so excited to make this list, because there are a lot of fighters booked, especially in like bantamweight and flyweight. There's barely any fighters that could fight on UFC 300, but I was taking a look at like, hey, who doesn't have anything going on? Who wants to have big fights? And I put them all together in a list from 30 to 1, starting off with 30 that, and don't get me wrong, I would love to see every single one of these fights, but I'm going to go from least to most, and I guarantee you guys, my top 10, especially top 5 list, I think I'm probably the only one who would ever make a list like this. It's going to shock you, but still, hear me out for the reasoning for these fights. And guys, I would love to know if there's any particular fights for UFC 300 that you would like to see in the comments section down below. We're going to get into the list in just a second. Before we do though, I do want to say hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's get this list started. So I'm not going to dive too deep into this. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but starting off from number 30, going all the way down to number 1, we have Tracy Cortez versus Veronica Hardy. Now, this fight, out of everything, I was trying to look through the women's divisions and trying to put together some good fights, because obviously UFC 300 is going to have some female fights on there, but I couldn't find anything that I really wanted to see. So why not have Tracy Cortez and Veronica Hardy on there? At least that will have everybody's eyes glued to the screen. And Tracy Cortez, you know what? They do have good technique. I shouldn't crap on them like I do the rest of those divisions. It's just, you get the point. If you're going to have a female fight, why not? For UFC 300, why not have Tracy Cortez versus Veronica Hardy? But guys, let's keep going. Number 29 on the list is Michael Chiesa versus Kelvin Gastelum. Two of my favorite fighters of all time. This makes sense in the division. This would bring hardcore eyes onto the table. It's two guys that are kind of in the same spots in their careers. Same rankings. Kelvin Gastelum is staying at 170 pounds. Don't know what happened with his last performance, but if he wants to bounce back and get a win because he is still hashtag on a mission for gold, Michael Chiesa might be the guy that he wants to get there. But guys, let's move on to fight number 28, that being the fight that everybody wants to see in the bantamweight division, Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. This fight's been booked. This fight is something that UFC wants. This is absolutely something that I could see the UFC putting together, and it would be one of the greatest fights that you can make in the bantamweight division. Let's keep going. Number 27, Islam Makhachev versus Justin Gaethje. This is tough because I'm not going to lie to you, Islam Makhachev in both Justin Gaethje, but you know what, both these guys are going to be on the list down the road, but putting these two together, and something that I should have mentioned is these are all ranked by my personal excitement level, if you haven't figured that out yet. These are all realistic fights, and the reason that I ordered them was, again, just my excitement level. So I wouldn't be as excited for this fight compared to other fight matchups for both guys, because I just see it being a repeat of the Khabib fight. I see Islam Makhachev going in there, styling on Gaethje and submitting him. So I would look forward to it. It would be a fantastic fight, but I just wouldn't, I wouldn't get that hype for it, you know? But anyways, let's keep going. Let's keep going back down to the bantamweight division, that being Jonathan Martinez taking on Davison Figueiredo. This fight makes sense in the rankings. Both guys are on not a roll, but a momentum swing. Jonathan Martinez is absolutely on a roll. It's two guys that will always bring it. I can't wait to see how those striking exchanges would go. I'm a big fan of both guys. Would love to see this fight. Let's keep going. Number 25 is actually going to be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. The most likely main event for UFC 300, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I wouldn't be nearly as excited for it as the rest of the fights on this list, guys. I'm not going to lie to you, man. It's a good fight, don't get me wrong, but something about McGregor and Chandler being together just doesn't sell it the same for me. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but that's just me. There's so many better matchups for Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, in my opinion. But let's keep going. These are going to get a little bit more weird now. We're diving into some of these fights, okay? Number 24 is Nate the Train Landwehr taking on Cub Swanson. Very close in the rankings. Both guys will always bring it. Both guys super exciting. Cub Swanson is one of my favorite fighters of all time, and Nate the Train Landwehr always brings it just like Cub does. These two together would be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I would love to see a legend like Cub Swanson on a UFC 300 card. Perhaps, depending on the point where he's at with his career, he could retire after this. I would like to see it personally. Number 23 is going to be Alexa Grasso versus Weili Zhang. I would have never put this fight together, but recently, both of them have agreed to see this fight. And to be honest with you, I can actually see the UFC making this fight. I really can see them putting it on UFC 300 because they'll probably want title fight, either that or the title fight, BMF, or roles reversed depending on where Conor McGregor is, and then a women's division fight, probably the strawweight division or the flyweight division. Why not have both of them, Alexa Grasso, Weili Zhang? I'd actually be so down to see that fight. I really, really would, but let's keep going down the list. Number 22, Leon Edwards versus Conor McGregor. I know. I know. It's ridiculous, but I can't help myself. I'd be excited for it. Leon's coach or manager, whoever it was, said that Leon Edwards might be on UFC 300. The UFC might need them for UFC 300. So what if the UFC's in talks with Conor now where it's like, hey, we're trying to get you a main event. Maybe Conor doesn't want Michael Chandler. Dana White mentioned that Conor's coming back for a championship. I can just see a world where they actually end up putting this together. That's just me, though. I really, really can see it. But let's keep going down the list, guys. Let's keep going down the list to number 21, Roman Kopylov versus Michel Pereira. This fight would be phenomenal. Stand-up battle. Someone's getting finished. High pace, high-level fight. Two prospects in the middleweight division. Michel Pereira just got a fantastic start to the middleweight division, and Roman Kopylov has been on an absolute tear. These two together would be absolute fireworks. Let's break into the top 20. Conor McGregor versus Justin Gaethje. This is a better matchup for both fighters out of everything that we've mentioned so far. There's bad blood there. It'd be a fun press conference, and these two would come in, and they would probably box, which would be really fun. I would imagine Justin Gaethje would murder Conor McGregor, but still, it would be very, very fun. Number 19, Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev. A fight that so many fans have wanted to see for such a long time now, myself included. Can Israel Adesanya survive the round 1 onslaught of Khamzat Chimaev? Can Khamzat Chimaev get Israel Adesanya to the ground? Can Khamzat Chimaev survive Israel Adesanya's range? This fight is so compelling, and to be honest with you, I feel like the build-up for this would be really fun. Is it just me? I think it'd be really, really fun. But let's continue still with Khamzat Chimaev, but this time I want him to take on Kamaru Usman in a rematch. This is something the fans wanted to see. This is a controversial decision. Such a close fight. Kamaru Usman took this fight on short notice. Why not run it back? I'd be totally okay with that, and the hype for it would be real. Let's keep going down the list to number 17, and this is a little contradictory because I just made a whole video talking about why this guy shouldn't fight anymore. But it's Tony Ferguson versus Nick Diaz. Here's the thing. We know Tony Ferguson's going to fight again. This is the best opponent for him because Nick Diaz, especially with his last performance, is clearly on Tony Ferguson's level. Not many fighters, or no fighter is like on Tony Ferguson's level anymore, but Nick Diaz is. This could be a fantastic send-off to two absolute legends. We know Nick Diaz that wants to come back and have another fight. Why not at UFC 300? This will bring all the eyes on there. Tony Ferguson, Nick Diaz. It's a winnable fight for both of them. They wouldn't take nearly as much damage as they would fighting literally anybody else. So putting these two together would be a great idea in my opinion. But guys, let's keep going almost into the top 15. We're moving on to number 16. It's Bilal Muhammad versus Colby Covington. Bad blood. Makes sense in the rankings. Important for the division. This fight has everything. Title eliminator, potentially. Not for Colby. Unless Leon Edwards loses his next fight, Colby needs to win a couple fights, man. That's ridiculous what he's been doing, but this is the fight to make. And honestly, the matchup is just genuinely interesting. I would imagine Colby would be able to take it, but not if he does the iCarly stance and comes in like, oh, I'm not going to get into it. That'd be a fun fight. But guys, let's break into the top 15. The 15th fight that I would love to see the most is Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt 2. Again, something that makes sense in the rankings. Something that has been long overdue for a rematch. Two fighters that fell off, but yet have found some success as of recent. They're both getting older, both getting towards the end of their careers, and they find each other in their paths again. The trash talk would be phenomenal for UFC 300. Cruz would style on Garbrandt again in that sense, but maybe Garbrandt would style on Cruz in the octagon again. This fight has everything. I would love to see it. I would love to see these two go at it again. But speaking of rematches, number 14 on the list is Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon 2. Controversial ending. Bad blood. You'll have everything for UFC 300. I would love to see this. Imagine the build-up here. Jared Gordon's like, hey, everybody knows I won this fight. The crowd booing Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett going, oh, you're a bunch of sausages, lad. You know, like I guarantee you. Plus, in my opinion, Paddy is really, really fun. I think he'd be great for a UFC 300 card. No matter, even if it's not against Jared Gordon, I would want to see Paddy Pimblett on there. But fight number 13, Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira. We don't know if this is something that Alex Pereira was teasing on his Instagram, but people have been talking about it, And I love it. To be honest with you, if I thought Alex Pereira had more of a chance of beating Tom Aspinall, I think Tom would just completely steamroll him, completely annihilate him. It wouldn't even be a close fight. If I did not think that, this would be near number one. You have Alex Pereira actually going for a three-division champion. That's something I forgot to mention with Conor McGregor versus Leon Edwards. That's one of the reasons why it was on the list as well. But I would love to see this. I would love to see Aspinall defend the interim belt against Alex Pereira. It's perfect for in the meantime because there's no actual solid contender for Tom Aspinall now. And to be honest, kind of the same thing for Alex Pereira too. I could see them actually making this fight. And I would love to see this fight. Let's keep going. Number 12, a fight that the UFC has been talking about for a long time. The two fighters have been talking about for a long time. The fans have been talking about for a long time. Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz. I don't need to sell this fight to you. We know Nate Diaz wants to come back to the UFC. We know that both him and Dustin are interested in each other. Makes sense in division. Dustin Poirier doesn't want to fight any contenders. This is an easy fight in Dustin's eyes. This is something that he could take. I absolutely love this fight. Let's continue with the Diaz train, though. Let's keep going, okay? Number 10 on the list is Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. A fight that I can also see being the main event. But something tells me, Rand, that it's not going to be Michael Chandler. It's not because they haven't gotten it done yet. I have a little bit of a gut feeling, and I know I'm not alone in that, but I could see them doing Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. We know, again, both of these guys want a trilogy fight. This is a winnable fight for Conor McGregor. Nate Diaz is completely 100% washed, so this is something Conor McGregor would probably be interested in signing off on. And depending on the rules with the BMF belt, you could just throw that there. Wouldn't shock me, to be honest with you, but the fight itself, whoo, amazing. But still on the Diaz train, we break into the top 10. Here's where you guys are going to... there's some fights on here that make total sense, okay? In my opinion, these all make sense. I'm just gauging these by my excitement level. Again, I looked at every UFC fighter, put some fights together. This is the excitement level I would feel for them. And my top 10 list is very weird. Top 10, Matt Brown versus Nick Diaz. A fight that I've wanted to see for a long time. A fight where two legends at UFC 300 could come at it. Matt Brown, Nick Diaz, two people at the same points in their career. You could have that Hail Mary retirement. We know Matt Brown still wants a fight. We know Nick Diaz wants another fight. Put them together. Same kind of skill level. Makes sense in the rankings. I would love to see this. Two of my favorite fighters going at it, especially Matt Brown. Now, number 9, we go back into reality a little bit, that being Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2. Charles looking like a beast. Islam Makhachev being a dominant champion. So the Islam Makhachev, the only guy to beat Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira just destroyed Beneil Dariush. Looked like a killer. Coming back for the title. Fight fell through. Put it together again, UFC 300. This is a fantastic matchup. Number 8, Diego Lopez versus Joanderson Brito. I guarantee you, nobody expected me to say that. Imagine this. Imagine the fireworks that these two would put on. Makes sense in the division. This is a fight I could very well see them putting on a prelims. Diego Lopez is getting a lot of attention now. Joanderson Brito is on a roll. This is an incredibly exciting fight. This is a hardcore MMA fan's dream fight. I really want to see those two go at it. Let's continue on, though. Let's continue on with a kind of prospects, kind of not, because we have like a prospect but a veteran at the same time. So, number 7 on the list, Benoit Saint Denis versus Drew Dober. This is one of the most violent fights that I could possibly think of. There's a couple ahead of us that could be more violent, but two guys that always bring it. I think at UFC 300, if you're looking for excitement value, you need Benoit Saint Denis on there. You absolutely 100% need Benoit Saint Denis on there. I will not hear anything else. This dude is so exciting. Same with Drew Dober. They always bring it. That is guaranteed fireworks. Let's move on to number 6. Number 6 for the BMF title, Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. The MMA community has been talking about it. I'm talking about it. I absolutely love this idea for a fight. Give it to me, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. It's perfect. It's perfect. If both guys aren't doing anything in the division, Justin Gaethje's sitting out, wants a title fight. Not going to happen. Max Holloway cleared his division out. Can't fight Alexander Volkanovski in. Have him move up, fight Justin Gaethje for the BMF belt. We know that. Actually, I know Max wants it. I don't remember if Justin Gaethje wants it. Regardless, I could see both of them saying yes to it. Absolutely. Moving on to the top 5 list, guys. I have Roman Kopylov versus Sharabut Magomedov. Yeah, you remember when I was talking about this being a weird list? I would get more excited for this fight than I would for everything else that I've mentioned so far on the list. I love watching Roman Kopylov fight. I loved watching Shara Butin fight. And this would bring violence. This would be a stand-up war, and I would love to see it, and this would mean a lot for the division. Give me this fight. Book it. It's fantastic. I need to see this. But number 4, guys. Number 4 is a fight that I would imagine is on everybody's list if they were making the same list. It's Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 3 for the 205 belt. I can see them doing this. This is a realistic fight. Israel Adesanya is sitting out. Alex Pereira wants to fight him. I can see Israel Adesanya, why not want to go up and fight him? The only reason I can see him not doing it is because he is gone off and he's settled the score, you know? So other than that, it's a very compelling matchup at 205 pounds, new weight division, settle the trilogy. This would be amazing. Top 3. All right. Guys. Oh, man. Yeah. I can't wait to see the comments on this one. Number 3, Khamzat Chimaev versus Marvin Vettori. This makes sense in the rankings. This is a great fight stylistically. And this fight would be incredible for a UFC 300 press conference. Think about getting these fighters at a UFC 300 press conference. Marvin Vettori being there with Khamzat Chimaev. Oh, and the fight would be absolute fireworks. And this is a guy that I can actually see kind of grappling with Khamzat Chimaev. I don't know. It's a very, very interesting fight with me. And honestly, out of everything that I've mentioned so far, this is number 3 on my list. It really, really is. But number 2, if you follow the channel, you might know that this guy was going to be on the list eventually. It's Jim Miller versus Paul Felder. This would be the best legend fight that you could possibly make. We know Jim Miller is going to be on the card. Dana White said that Jim Miller is going to be on UFC 300. Paul Felder came back. He's ready to go. Why not have it at UFC 300? It's probably what he's waiting for. This fight would break my heart because I am such a big fan of both guys. But this would be the perfect Legends fight for UFC 300. You have Jim Miller fought at UFC 100, 200, 300, have a double retirement fight. This would hit me in the feelings more than anything, especially the fact that I'd have to watch one of them lose. Oh, man. I almost didn't want to make it a fight because I like both guys so much. But guys, the number 1 fight that I believe that would make me most excited to watch UFC 300 is Colby Covington versus Dustin Poirier. This is a fight that makes sense in the UFC. The rankings, Dustin Poirier, like I said, he only wants big fights. That makes sense where both of them are kind of stuck in their divisions. You'd have the trash talk. You'd have the bad blood. You would have the viral moments on the internet. They would just mix in really well with anybody else on the card, especially when it comes to trash talk. This fight would also be absolutely fireworks because even if Colby Covington comes in there and stinks it up again, Dustin Poirier will not let him stink it up. Dustin Poirier will walk forward and try to take his head off. And Colby will have to do something, and he'll probably end up doing something. Oh, man. The fight's great. The build-up's great. This fight would have absolutely everything. And that would be the fight that I will be looking forward to most if they were to book it for UFC 300. Honestly, that's the fight that could compel me the most out of everybody in the UFC right now. I'll read you out the top 5 again. Roman Kopylov versus Shara Butin Magomedov, Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 3, Khamzat Chimaev versus Marvin Vettori, Jim Miller versus Paul Felder, Colby Covington versus Dustin Poirier. That was my list of 30 UFC fights that I would love to see on UFC 300. Let me know if there's anything you thought of that I haven't mentioned. If there's any fight that I have mentioned that you like, again, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video on the screen right now. If you'd like to continue watching the Clen channel, the Clenbat channel, excuse me, there'll be 2 videos on screen for you to check out. I will see you either there or in the next video, everybody. Take care.